I look back at the younger version of myself, and I see a man who was completely
From
lost.
the darkest battles to the brightest victories, these are the stories of survival, strength, and second chances. This is Unbroken, where pain meets power and healing begins.
Let's go back a little bit, like, because you really are adamant in recovery now. I know you've cleaned up your life. How long have you been sober for?
I'm actually approaching my 2 year mark come December 10th.
That's incredible, dude. I love that. That's super incredible. Congratulations, man. I know the
Thank you.
work that goes into that. Let's go back a little bit about like how did you, begin your addiction? Like, take us back to like what brought that on.
So my addiction did not start with actual like drugs. Drugs was actually just a symptom of what my addiction was. I think my addiction was being addicted to being accepted, doing anything and everything to be accepted, um, from a very young age. And, you know, I remember being in second grade doing an act that you look at it now and laugh at it. So I'd taken the petty cash my parents had to pay out the landscapers and the people who took care of like cleaning out the gutters in the house type of deal. See that the reason why I took that was because when my parents handed them that money, these people all of a sudden who were originally grumpy, they're smiling, and I saw that, oh, that's how you make people happy. And I was very much of a lone individual. Didn't have many friends growing up. Didn't have met much of a large, circle of people who I felt like a sense of belonging to. So what I would do is I would take that petty cash and hand out the cash at school in second grade. And all these kids were really smiling. Ooh, money! I mean, $20 in second grade. That's like a $1,000 today to us. And I thought people like me. And it was very, very much of a false sense of security at that point. And that really snowballed into me getting that endorphin rush of people liking me, smiling at me because of the wild, crazy things that I was doing. Um, and it spiraled me into a lifestyle that I'm not very proud of in any way or form. I've stolen, hurt the people closest to me, and I ended up actually in a treatment center at an early age. So, even though I'm 2 years clean now, it's not my first round of recovery. Recovery is not something that's new to me. I had a much heavier addiction to more harder substances, but what I've learned is that my addiction isn't to a substance; it's to the escape. The substance was just the most obvious parts and symptoms of the addiction. And I learned to actually try to mask it and justify, oh, but this is legal, so it's okay. This is okay. This is safe because everyone else is doing it. It's legalized, it's decriminalized. It's not a drug, but in reality, it was for me. Any of this was, and how I was abusing it turned into a drug.
It's funny you say that about the whole growing up and giving people money because that's how I did the same thing because I felt the same way. And I feel like the more I talk to people, that experience addiction, it's kind of we all have the same template. We want to belong, and I thought the same thing. Like I would steal money and give it to kids, and they would be like happy, and I would be like, oh, everybody likes me because I never liked myself. Like I never liked myself. I always felt like uncomfortable in my own skin all my life, and it's really unique how we all kind of had that same feeling, of wanting to be accepted. And then even later on in life, I had a lot of friends around and stuff because I worked out, but I never felt, I'd be that guy that would be in a room full of people and be lonely. It's just like it's always funny like that how we feel. And I love how you said about because I had a kind of a spiritual awakening when I was in recovery, And I was looking around the rooms and I was like, man, there's guys in this room with 30 years of sobriety and they're still doing, like, they're still mean, they're still cheating on their wives, getting prostitutes, breaking the law, but they're sober. And I was looking at it and going, man, their characters, so they have so many still these character defects. And I didn't really want to be like them, right? Of course, because I was gravitating to the people that, had their shit together, so to speak. But I realized because I would blame everything on, oh, I was high when I did that and this and that. And then once the curtain was lifted, I realized that I was the problem. You know what I mean? It wasn't the drugs. The drugs, like you said, masked my trauma, masked all my bad behaviors. And then all of a sudden the curtain's off and I'm like, holy shit, man, I have to deal with myself now. And how did you learn how to deal with who you were as a person?
I still am learning. It's a constant process, man. I'm still putting into practice a lot of what I've learned in recovery. And learning from the book, learning from the steps, and applying them in my day-to-day life. It is an ongoing process. Actually, as of right now, I'm experimenting with a new ideology. I'm going on an off season for arm wrestling, because I found that I have become addicted to the promotions. I've been addicted to the actual competitions. I've been nonstop for 5 years in this arm wrestling world to the point where I'm neglecting other components of my life that I need to maintain focus to. So at the end of this month, it marks the begin. It's my season finale, if you may, until March, and I'm staying true to that. So moderation, right, and forcing said moderation upon myself is how I'm navigating all the different symptoms of having an addictive personality.
It's funny you say that because I just came to a realization this year. I was thinking about the same thing. I decided we just had this chance. We just put together these super matches, and we're kind of starting a new league in Florida where we're just kind of like Arm Wars was like, where we're
Okay.
doing these matches on the beach or like in these really nice locations and then editing the footage and then, producing it later. So like after this match I had, I had a really great match with my opponent. And after it was over, I was like, I really want to do the same thing you're talking about. Take a little break and have an off season and fix a few injuries that I have, work on some weaknesses, of course, but not get so obsessive with competing and stuff. Because it's funny as addicts, dude, like, I don't know how you are, but when I get involved in a new sport or a new endeavor, I have to, like, if it's fishing, I got to buy all the nice fishing rods, all the nice reels. I got to like go, oh, I got to, get a boat, whatever it is. It's just, I go crazy with it all the time. And it's just funny, how we can do that with other aspects of our lives and stuff.
It's unreal because I have become obsessed where I've converted my 1.5 car garage into an arm wrestling specific gym. Now I'm modifying it actually to it's going to become a home gym where both my wife and my son can utilizing strength training in it. So that's what actually during this off season that I'm rebuilding it and restructuring it so that we can all benefit, not just solely me. You know what I mean? It's insane what I have done and the levels I've gotten to in the sport of arm wrestling. Thanks to my addictive personality, right? But then now it's kind of like got to dial it back a little bit because you push it too much, then it becomes a bad thing.
Yeah, 100%. So you were saying that this is in your first road to recovery. Did you like get into meetings? You said you went to like a rehab or a recovery program.
Yeah.
So was it a constant battle for you over the years? Like, how old were you when you finally like decided to have that you really had the willingness to put in the work right now, which is the journey you're on now, basically?
So my journey started in recovery at 19. It was a forced recovery. I'm 39 now. It was kind of like a forced recovery because I was homeless. I was destroying my life around me, and I went into a treatment center, a 3-year intensive treatment center program, out of Brooklyn in upstate New York. And they gave me a lot of tools and a lot of benefit, but complacency set in. After maybe I would say about 5 years of being clean, um, I thought that I was king of the world. I was like, yeah, you know what? I can take it easy. I can put my feet up and relax. I don't have to put this work in anymore. And I was susceptible to suggestion, saying, hey, you need to calm down. Here's something to help you out. And I was like, it's not what I used to use. And it just opened up the gateway back into the lifestyle I was living. And that was talk about a progressive decline that really was, I didn't realize what was happening. I was slowly and surely destroying my life, and hurting people that were really near and dear to me, my wife, my son. And, it was until literally 2 years ago that something had happened in my life where everything that I had was almost about to be taken away. It was this close, and it could have been taken away. And I'm grateful that the people who were the deciding forces of that said, we're going to give him a chance. It wasn't easy, though. It was a very rocky path. There's a lot of ebb and flow of that, and it was kind of uncertain as to what my future was going to become. But I knew that I needed to make the change 2 years ago. I needed to make the change. If I wanted anything that I had already and wanted more from it, that change was a necessity, and a dramatic one at that. And so, that's where I'm at today. And I'm still making dramatic changes as we speak. My son's in Boy Scouts. I'm going to become more of a scout dad. I never thought I would be that, but it's a beautiful thing that I get to experience that.
What do you think is the biggest difference now for you to really stick to a game plan? Because I've talked to people, they've had like years of sobriety, like you said, but you get complacent. You think, you have a forgetter. We all have that forgetter. And we think, oh, you know what, a couple pills here, or I never did this, so let me have a couple drinks or whatever. How is it different for you now? Like, what kind of mindset are you in? Like, do you have the willingness to do whatever it takes now? Is that the key for you?
Well, so yes, I have the willingness to do whatever it takes to get better and constantly improve. But the other part of it is that when my first round of recovery, I got kicked out of my house. I didn't have to live with the aftermath of the destruction that I was causing. In this instance, I see it day in, day out. I see, yeah, no, like I live with the destruction that I caused. My son, who's 11 years old now, and he only has known me for the last 2 years in recovery. But his entire life, he knew me in a different light, right? So he knows me as a different human. I'm almost like a virtual stranger to him now, right? So now he gets to see like the best pieces of me and the best pieces of what I get to offer. And not for nothing, my other half, she now gets to see me in a different light, and an opportunity for me to really show her who she really fell in love with, not just a facade of who she fell in love with.
So you experienced homelessness. Your addiction took you to, dark places and stuff like that. Do you ever look back at those times and like think to yourself, like, man, you don't even really recognize the person you were back then?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I was one of those guys that wore the baggiest of baggy jeans. I was hanging down my low, to my knees practically. I wore the baggy shirts. I'll never wear baggy stuff again. It's kind of why I wear the form-fitting stuff a little bit more, to keep myself distant and reminded this is what I've worked for to get to where I'm at. I had chains galore. I thought I was a gangster. I thought I mean, for all intents and purposes, I was part of a gang. And I was somebody who was running part of a drug ring.
Okay.
In my first part of recovery, I was, and it wasn't just, selling light stuff. I was part of a cocaine drug ring, and it was something that I'm not proud of. And I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I survived some shit that most people don't have the opportunity to do so. And there's a side of me that many people aren't aware of in this day and age, unless they know me very personally. And yeah, I look in the mirror and I'm like, man, that was me at one point. I look at pictures of me from, my past, and I'm like, holy crap, I don't recognize who that is.
There was a point in my addiction where I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day, like one morning, and I was like, I didn't even know who I was during that time. I was like so disgusted with myself, and I still kept using for years after that, but it was like I was just at one of those points in my life, man. And it's crazy, like when you look back at who you were and how you're living your life today. Like, what would you say to people that are struggling with addiction? What advice would you give them to help them maybe plant a seed, to help them get into like recovery, or just to help them change their mindset a little bit?
So I had the burning desire to change right then and there. I knew I needed that change. And so I was very, willing to do whatever it took to change. Um, some people have a little bit of a harder time with that. And I think because they don't believe, they don't understand that there is a better way to live. As somebody who's already experienced recovery, I already had that experience, right? I already knew that there was a better way to live, and I was definitely not living it. Uh, but my first round of recovery was sticking and staying, just staying until, I'm seeing these people. Not all these people can be paid actors, right? Some of these people, like, they are truly experiencing what they're saying, and there's got to be a better way to live. Maybe I can have a piece of that pie too, if I just stay long enough. You know, and one of the things that in the rooms that I will say I appreciate tremendously that they've done for me is they let me know they're gonna love me until I learn to love myself. And I've learned to love parts of myself. Am I wholly there? No, not yet. I'll be admitted. I'm not. There are mistakes that I make day in, day out that I beat myself up over. But there are things that I do greatly appreciate about myself and I'm proud of myself for, and being able to look at each and every part of me, taking an inventory of who I am and what I plan to be, and what tools I have available to me to do so, is how I prosper and how I put literal one step in front of the other for the next day.
For me, I had to become honest with myself. Did you feel like you had to be honest? Because I remember a time where when I first got into recovery, I was sitting down and I was working on one of my steps, and it was like the my personal defects, right? And I'm sitting there at the table with a blank piece of paper, and my wife walked by and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm trying to, figure out what my personal defects are." And I said to her, I go, I'm a real nice person, man. I don't know like what my personal defects are. And then she starts ramming off about five or six different things, and she kept going. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're right. I'm not being honest with myself here. And do you think that's a big thing with people? Like they have to really, be honest with themselves, because it can be very painful and humiliating, and also I feel like give you a lot of anxiety to like think about the person you were in the past, and then kind of have to like admit to all that. Do you think that's can be a
That's a
real?
huge
Go ahead.
that's a huge part of it. And to your point, and how I experienced working through steps, during my inventory in that regard, when I was writing things down, I did it with my sponsor. And, you know, my recommendation is the entire journey of recovery never should be done alone, because in fact, you're never alone. There's an entire community, and there's not every community is for every single person. There's not one size fits all. There's going to be different worlds and different capacities. It's a matter of finding that spot that you find that you can call home. I happen to find mine in the rooms, and I'm still active in the rooms. I still have some of my closest friends in the rooms that I still maintain communication with on a regular basis, and they're people whom I bounce ideas and thoughts on. Like, hey, what suggestion do you have about this scenario in this situation? And they're like, well, did you do an inventory on it? And it's great because it's developed a connection of spirituality for me that I never thought existed.
Do you feel like it gives you accountability too? You have like that group of people where you can go and bounce ideas, like you said, off of people. If you're in a jam, you can talk to someone that's experienced the same things as you're going through.
Oh, without a doubt, most certainly gives me the opportunity to get a perspective of something that somebody else may have already experienced, right? Just because I might feel like it's unique to me doesn't mean it really is. You know what I mean? It's something that someone else has gone through something of similar fashion, and this is how they've persevered or handled it, or overcame whatever trial and tribulation that I'm going through, right? So, what and that's what the power of the community. That's one of the reasons why I love the arm wrestling community, because all these walks of life are coming together for one thing and one thing only.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the fellowship when I was in recovery, going to meetings and stuff. But I realized too, like I had like I don't know how to put this, but like I was in the rooms for 4 years, and I was an avid speaker. I went to detox. I went to all these speaker meetings and stuff. But like eventually, I got to the point where my ego was kind of taking over a little bit, and like I'd share my recovery stories, and I would think like look at me, I'm recovered, I'm speaking well in front of all these people. And this is before I realized, because it was out of the rooms where I kind of had this experience where I realized that, okay, the drugs and shit are done, now I have to deal with me. And that's kind of like, once I learned that, I was able to kind of tame my ego. Do you ever feel like that sometimes? Like, because you have this recovery, you're feeling good in life, and you see some guy walking in from the rooms, and he doesn't really have what you have, and you do kind of you feel compassionate towards that because you know what it feels like. But did you ever feel like that? Because I feel like sometimes people that have a lot of sobriety, they think that it's their program sometimes too. So
I'm thankful because early on in my recovery, because I had, I came in with like a man on fire, right? And I jumped into serious step work at 4 months in. And I actually went through all the steps by the time I was 6 months in. And I had a lot of experience, right? And I had my first sponsee at 6 months. And it was because my sponsor said, listen, you're eager to do this. Don't let it get to your head. And I didn't. And because it taught me how to be right size. I was not too big nor too small. I was just feeling where I needed to belong. So in that light, I have seen others do that. I have. But I myself, when it comes to recovery, I don't feel like I'm high and mighty about it, about my recovery, because everyone has their journey. And, what has worked for me may not work for other people, but at the very least, I hope you can hear what has worked for me and listen to the message and not the mess that I might display.
yeah, that's a good point too, because that's good that you had that mindset. I feel like I had such a big ego, man. I had to really tame it over the years. So
Oh, I leave
it's
the ego for the arm wrestling table.
that's incredible. So do you do service work? Do you help others? Part of your recovery? Do you have any sponsees now?
I do not have any sponsors now, but I do key tags
Okay.
at meetings, and I do go to speak at some meetings. I try to keep that to not too much because I don't want to be and I can see that, hey, I'm always available. Let me know when you need something. I don't want to be that person because I know if I do, then I'll take it into that direction.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned before, moderation, being able to throttle myself before I get ahead of myself is something that I'm still learning how to apply in different components. But I feel that I've done a pretty decent job with that in recovery and maintaining my recovery and spreading the message of my message of recovery.